Welcome to God Wingin It. My name is Roger Mikael Klang. I mainly use the mainstream media SR Ekot as a source. Mainstream media is a much better informant. The Kristersson government has been the government of Sweden since October 2022, formed by Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson from the Moderate Party. The government is a minority government consisting of the Moderate Coalition Party, the Christian Democrats, and the Liberals, with parliamentary support from the Sweden Democrats. But the Sweden Democrats, with 20.4% voter support, is the second largest political party in Sweden, only second to the Social Democrats, with 35% voter support. The Moderates, which is the next biggest party in the bourgeois government, has got a 19.1% voter support. So the question is, will the Sweden Democrats gain ministerial posts if the bourgeois wins the next election? They will swine up the whole pigsty, as we say in Sweden. It's already a pigsty, in my opinion. A prosecutor wants a man in his 40s to be sentenced to prison for unlawfully threatening Ministers Johan Forsell and Benjamin Dusa. This after he placed a basket of apples with sketched pictures of Adolf Hitler's face on them outside Forsell's home earlier this year. The man, who belongs to a pro-Kurdish activist group, admits to placing the objects but denies any wrongdoing. He says the purpose was to stir up public opinion. Let us all remember that Johan Forsell's son was caught making Nazi connections and doing Nazi stuff red-handed. But that wasn't even the reason for the man in his 40s to sketch apples with Hitler faces. And this is where it gets scary. Johan Forsell is the migrant minister. Johan Forsell and his party, the Moderate Party, which is anything but moderate, could just as well have been a Sweden Democrat. The two parties are so politically entwined, one can't tell where one starts and the other ends any longer. You tell me if painting apples can be considered an unlawful threat. Yes, maybe, if he had painted something violent aimed at Johan Forsell. The man did also, at another minister's home, place a doll depicting an ISIS terrorist with a plastic knife and a bloody doll's head in its hand. The plastic knife apparently stirred up the little chicken, Benjamin Dusa. But the man in question isn't even Muslim. His aim was to connect Minister Benjamin Dusa with ISIS atrocities because the man was a Kurd and perceived that the Swedish government supports the Syrian regime. Right or wrong, who knows? But how can it be a threat? Benjamin Dusa is also a moderate. He is the Minister of Foreign Trade and International Development Cooperation. They are throwing the book at the man now. The law has to have its course. So when did the law become politics? The obviously biased prosecutor wants to punish him with 1 year and 2 months in prison. Just like that. And they will probably throw him out of the country after he has served out his sentence. The injustice. The bourgeois government is competing with the Sweden Democrats to increase penalty rates, but they don't actually have any solutions to any real problems. If they have any solutions, they are certainly coercive. The Social Democrats aren't better. When the parliament in the EU last week decided on a list of countries that are considered safe to send migrants back to, the Swedish Social Democrats voted with the right-wing parties and against the line of their own party group. The Social Democrats wanted to see a no to the proposal, but the Swedish Social Democrats voted yes in Parliament in Europe. In total, 25 Swedish Social Democrats in the Parliament voted a yes. 89 followed the party line and voted no. I'm not going to tell EU Parliament members how to vote. Neither am I going to say that what they voted is morally wrong. That isn't my issue. My issue is the cowardice of these 25 social democrats. None, I repeat, none, stood their ground and led by example. Instead, they refused to answer journalists' questions about why they voted like they did. 88 of them. And US President Donald Trump will order Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and other agencies to release government documents on extraterrestrial life. At least that is what he wrote on Truth Social. But the little orange man baby isn't very consistent. It includes documents related to aliens, unidentified airborne phenomena, and unidentified flying objects, so-called UFOs. The announcement comes just hours after Trump accused former President Barack Obama of revealing classified information when he said in an interview that aliens exist. Why ever he said that. What a farcical move, Donald. This will not be good for America when a lot of nutjobs will go around and delusionally rant about extraterrestrial aliens on US soil. And on Iran. Iran will act decisively if it is subjected to military aggression, the country says in a letter to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, after US President Donald Trump previously said that they would probably announce within 10 days whether they would take military action against Iran. In the letter, they urged the UN to quote, ensure that the US ceases its illegal threats, end quote. And that Tehran may see the bases, buildings, and assets of hostile forces as legitimate targets if they are subjected to military force. I bet Iran won't launch nuclear weapons because they don't have any. I also don't think that Israel has nuclear weapons. Well, they could have free-falling tactical B-61 nuclear bombs dropped from Israel's F-35 aircraft fleet, but I don't think they have strategic nuclear weapons. If they do, they must process the nuclear material in the warheads every 5 years or so, and that can most certainly only be done by the Americans. The existence or non-existence of Israeli strategic nuclear weapons is a play for the gallery, and so is likely also Iranian nuclear weapons a play for the gallery. It's all a smokescreen. That's what it is. Israel doesn't comment on their supposed nuclear weapons. They don't comment. For Israel, this is a hazardous self-inflicted harm. What's more is that the moron party, the Sweden Democrats, are proposing foreign nations to base nuclear weapons on Swedish soil because they want to deter Russia. I'm now going to crush their argument. The US has intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, on US soil, and they have second strike nuclear subs. They also have B-61 free-falling nuclear tactical bombs. Their surface ships like the Arleigh Burke-class cruisers, lack nuclear capability since the early 1990s, I think. Let us take a look at the ICBMs for a minute. They have a very long range since they are intercontinental ballistic missiles. Even if the US would agree to deploy ICBMs in a mountain complex here in Sweden, they wouldn't do much good since their range is not optimal for such short ranges like those from Norland to Moscow. If we, on the other hand, take a look at the nuclear subs, they have missiles with a range of some between the thumb and index finger 7,500 kilometers. Why then would they base armed nuclear subs in Sweden? What good would they do in the Baltic Sea? They'd just be a sitting target. They are built to strike from beneath the surface from a long distance. And so we come to the last and final nuclear weapons in the US arsenal. What about the free falling B 61 bomb dropped from aircraft? Well, we would just invite Russia to launch a medium range ballistic missile on our ass if we ever dropped a B 61 bomb on any Russian forces, most likely on Swedish soil. Do we want to drop nuclear bombs on Swedish soil? Even if we dropped it on their naval forces, and the B 61 detonated in a chain reaction some 100 meters up in the air, it would give Russia the casus belli, cause for war, they need to annihilate us with their at least hundreds of times bigger arsenal. Ukraine has managed without nuclear weapons for quite some time now. It is on them coerced war against the nation with the biggest nuclear arsenal in the world. Also, France and UK have only nuclear weapons subs, and no ground based nuclear weapons. At least the British nukes have a range of approximately 7,500 kilometers. That's about the distance from New York to Moscow. Again, why would they park them in close range of Russian retaliation? So fuck you, Sweden Democrats, you stupid brown shirts. Roger and out.